A post gets 10,000 views, 200 people join the waitlist. The comments say, please build this. Then launch day arrives and 3 people buy. What happened? You measured attention and called it demand. I'm Ace, good to have you here. Let me ask you something. What would someone have to do before you believe the problem really mattered to them? That gap between enthusiasm and commitment is where an enormous amount of builder time disappears. Not because the builder is lazy. Usually the opposite. They work harder. They add features, publish more content, redesign the landing page, connect another automation, and tell themselves the breakthrough is one improvement away. Here's the thing. A positive signal is not automatically strong evidence. A view is not a purchase. A question is not a deposit. A deposit is not retention. Those signals can all be useful, but they answer different questions. Today I want to show you how to tell which question you have actually answered. I call the framework the evidence ladder. It gives you 4 increasingly serious forms of evidence: curiosity, problem engagement, behavioral commitment, and repeatable payment. The point is not to demand a full business before you take the first step. The point is to stop acting as if you have reached the top when you are still standing at the bottom. And this is not a system for eliminating uncertainty. You cannot do that. You are choosing an audience, a problem, an offer, and a channel with incomplete information. The goal is simpler: make uncertainty cheaper, make each experiment more informative, and set a point where you will actually decide what to do next. Let's follow one example so this doesn't turn into 4 disconnected definitions. Imagine Maya, an independent consultant who wants to build an AI-assisted proposal workflow. She notices that consultants spend hours turning rough client notes into clear proposals. It sounds like a good opportunity. But sounds like a good opportunity is not evidence yet. It is a starting hypothesis. Maya's first move is not to spend 3 months building software. She writes an article about reducing the time between a discovery call and a client-ready proposal. She shares a short checklist. Maybe the article gets strong search traffic. Maybe people click through from a social post. Maybe several readers reply. I need this. Good. That is movement. But what kind? That is curiosity. It includes impressions, clicks, likes, shares, casual compliments, and people saying they would love to use an idea like yours. Curiosity tells you that a topic is visible, understandable, or emotionally attractive. It can help you find better language. It can show you which headline earns attention. It cannot yet tell you whether the problem is important enough for someone to change behavior. That distinction sounds obvious until you have a post performing well. Then the numbers start telling a story. You see the graph rising and your brain fills in the rest. People want it, they need it, they will pay for it. Maybe. Or maybe the topic is simply easy to consume. Maybe people are collecting free advice. Maybe the headline promises a result that feels good to imagine but is not urgent enough to purchase. I've made a version of this mistake myself, treating a busy comment section as if it were a pre-sale. It feels like validation because there is activity. But activity and commitment are different currencies. The useful question is not, did people react? It is, what did the people who reacted do next? So test curiosity cheaply. Publish one focused article. Put up a plain landing page. Ask one specific question where your target audience already spends time. Track the source of each response, not only the total. 10 thoughtful replies from actual consultants may teach you more than 10,000 broad impressions. Record the words people use, the questions they ask, and the objections that appear. Then stop. Give the test an afternoon or a week and a modest budget. Do not keep posting forever because the numbers are almost encouraging. When the curiosity test ends, ask whether you have learned enough to invite people into a more demanding interaction. If not, change the audience, the problem, or the wording before you build anything expensive. Maya moves one step higher by asking readers to complete a short diagnostic. It asks how long proposal creation takes, where the source notes live, how often proposals are sent, and what happens when the process breaks down. Now people have to spend effort. They have to think about their current workflow instead of simply agreeing that the idea sounds useful. This is problem engagement. Someone describes the process in detail. They share a real example. They attend a focused conversation. They complete a diagnostic. They ask for a specific solution. Effort is not perfect evidence, but it usually says more about priority than a quick reaction does. If you want to test this level, avoid asking, would you buy my product? That question invites a prediction, and predictions are cheap. People may be polite, they may like you, they may want the problem solved someday. Ask about the past instead. How do you handle this today? When did it last cause trouble? What did you try? How much time did it consume? What did the delay or mistake cost? Those questions create a different conversation. You may hear, I spend 4 hours a week on this, or it only happens twice a year and I have a workaround. Both answers are useful. One suggests frequency and pain. The other may tell you that the problem is real but not urgent enough for a standalone product. Notice what happened there. Maya did not ask for compliments about her future software. She examined the existing behavior. That is a much better foundation for an offer. And if 8 people describe the same recurring bottleneck, she now has language, context, and a clearer problem to test. But here's the trap. Problem interviews can become comfortable. You can spend 6 weeks collecting thoughtful answers and call that progress. At some point, research has to become a decision. Define the audience, the problem, the sample, and the deadline before you begin. For example, 8 consultants, 10 days, 1 recurring proposal bottleneck, and a search for evidence that the problem is frequent and expensive enough to justify help. Now, someone might object. What about a search-focused website or a resource library that takes a year to mature? Fair question. The evidence ladder is not a demand-only machine. Some assets build authority, trust, and useful distribution before they generate much revenue. You should not abandon every long-term project because it lacks immediate payment. You do need to separate 2 claims. One claim is this asset may become valuable over time. The other is people currently have urgent demand for this specific offer. The first may be supported by growing search coverage, returning visitors, strong references, or increasing trust. The second requires stronger behavior from a defined audience. Keep both claims on the page. Just do not use one as proof of the other. For Maya, the next move is a small paid pilot. 3 consultants get a 2-week proposal workflow. She will review their real discovery notes, help shape the proposal, and use simple AI assistance where it saves time. No polished platform yet. No elaborate dashboard. Just a defined outcome and a real exchange. This is behavioral commitment. A person pays a deposit. They schedule the implementation call. They share the information needed to deliver the result. They use a rough manual version more than once. They accept the small inconvenience because solving the problem is worth it. Now the evidence has weight. And this is where AI tools and vibe coding can help if you use them honestly. Build the rough interface. Automate the repetitive step. Turn messy notes into a draft. Create a form that makes the manual process easier. Speed is valuable when it gets you closer to a real test. But speed can also hide weak demand. A prototype that looks impressive is still a prototype. If nobody books the pilot, sends the source material, uses the workflow twice, or pays for the outcome, another batch of features is not automatically the answer. Sometimes the product is missing functionality. Sometimes the offer is unclear. And sometimes the problem just does not matter enough right now. Give every commitment test 3 boundaries. What result are you promising? How long will the test run? What does the participant contribute? That contribution might be money, access, time, or a scheduled decision. If someone says they are interested but will not choose a date, provide a real example, or make a small payment, record that honestly. It may be a no, it may mean the promise needs work. Either way, it is information. A single payment is encouraging. It is not the finish line. It could be an outlier. It could be a favor. It could come from someone who already trusts you. The stronger question is whether the result happens again. That brings us to repeatable payment. Customers renew, they return for another purchase, they refer someone without being pushed. A defined source produces reasonably consistent conversions. People keep using the result because the problem keeps existing and your solution keeps earning its place. For a digital product, repeatability might mean upgrades, repeat purchases, referrals, or reliable sales from useful search traffic. For a local service, it might mean returning customers and a steady referral pattern. For an authority website, it might mean several related pages producing conversions instead of one lucky article. The form changes. The question stays the same. Can this result happen again for a defined audience through a process you can sustain? Maya might discover that consultants will pay for proposal help once, but they do not return. That does not necessarily mean the entire idea is dead. Maybe the real opportunity is a recurring review service. Maybe the workflow belongs inside a broader client operations package. Maybe the one-time product is valuable, but the subscription is not. Evidence does not only tell you whether to continue, it helps you see what kind of business the problem can support. Let's make the decision process easy to repeat. Write down 6 things: who you are testing, what problem they have, what signal you want, what the test will cost, what objections appear, and what you will try next.
Then add one line that says continue, adjust, or stop. That final line matters. Without it, every result can be explained away.
Maya's record might sound like this. I am testing whether independent consultants will pay for a proposal workflow. I will speak with 8 people, offer 5 paid pilots, and run the test for 2 weeks. I continue if at least 2 people pay and use it more than once. I adjust if people engage but reject the promise or price. I stop if the problem is consistently interesting but not urgent. Simple, not perfect science. A much better decision environment than vibes alone. Also, record where the responses came from. Friends, existing followers, search visitors, cold prospects, and referrals do not carry exactly the same meaning. A response from your audience may prove that your audience likes the idea. It may not prove that the broader market does. Small samples can be useful, but label them honestly. 8 conversations are 8 conversations, not a universal law. This is not about turning business building into a spreadsheet and removing judgment. Context still matters. A seasonal service, a trust-heavy purchase, and a search website will all move at different speeds. The scorecard simply forces you to say what you believe, what you observed, and what would change your mind. Let's connect the dots. Curiosity tells you where attention exists. Problem engagement tells you whether people will spend effort explaining and exploring the issue. Behavioral commitment tells you whether they will take a meaningful risk to pursue a solution. Repeatable payment tells you whether the result can support a durable business process. You climb one rung at a time. You do not build the entire staircase before checking whether anyone wants to go up it. And you do not mistake a crowded first rung for a successful business. So choose one idea this week, not 5. 1. Name the audience. Name the problem. Decide what the smallest meaningful action would be if that problem truly mattered. Maybe it is completing a diagnostic. Maybe it is sending a real file. Maybe it is booking a call, paying for a pilot, or using a manual version twice. Give the test a budget and an end date. Watch behavior, not only enthusiasm. Write down the objections. Then make the decision you promised to make. Continue, adjust, or stop. More research is not always more wisdom. Sometimes the next useful fact is waiting on the other side of a clear offer. The key lesson is simple. Do not confuse being noticed with being needed. Attention can start the conversation. Commitment tells you whether the conversation deserves more of your limited time. Use the evidence ladder to understand what you know, what you do not know, and what small action can reduce that uncertainty next. Think about that for a moment. Your job is not to eliminate risk. Your job is to make risk cheaper, clearer, and more informative. Before you build another feature, ask one real person to take the smallest, meaningful action. Their behavior may teach you more than another week of polishing. If this gave you a better way to choose what to build, subscribe to the show. I'll keep bringing you practical systems for AI, digital real estate, website strategy, solopreneurship, and building more independence with fewer wasted moves. Before you go, write down the idea you are most tempted to build right now. Then write the smallest meaningful test beside it. Set the deadline, make the offer, see what people do. Well, that's enough to think about for today. Appreciate you spending a few minutes with me. I'll catch you in the next one.